Hey everyone, Logan at My Bike Shop. Just wanted to walk you through how to change a flat tube on your bike. I know it can be very frustrating, but we want to make sure you're comfortable and an expert at changing your flat whenever you get it. So we're going to go through basically the tools that you need to use it, and also we're going to go through how to do it the right way every time so that you can keep on riding. We would just like to review the materials that you're going to need to change out your flat tube. Here we have a CO2 inflator head. Here we have a 16-gram CO2 cartridge. Here we have 2 tire levers to take the tire bead off. You'd like to carry a spare tube in the same valve length and size that your tire you're running. A seat bag to carry all the goodies, or if you have a jersey that has pockets, you can stuff all the goods into the pocket. Now that we have our materials together, we just wanted to remind you for the first time tire changers that it can be difficult at first, but after some practice in this video, it should be second nature. So let's get started. Before we move on to removing the rear wheel from the bike, we want to shift the bike to its highest gear in the rear. If it's an STI lever like this, we want to push the small lever all the way in until it stops clicking. If it's a triathlon bike, we want to push the bar end shifter all the way down. Next up, we need to open up the brake caliper to let the tire pass through. We want to pick the rear wheel off the ground and pedal until the chain goes all the way into the highest gear on the rear. Next thing, we want to check to make sure that the chain is actually all the way down to the smallest size cog. Our next step will be to open up the quick release to let the wheel come out of the bike. Now we're finally ready to move on to removing our flat tube. First we want to remove the dust cap, set this aside, and then the valve retainer. Set this aside with your cap. Then, if I press the valve, we'll open up the valve lightly until it stops. Next up, we'll take our tire lever in our right hand, and in our left hand we'll peel the tire bead back, preferably at a spoke. Next up, we will scoop the tire bead with the tire lever, and then click the tire lever onto the spoke. Most tire levers have this little hook, making it easier for you to remove the tire bead. Then, a few inches down, we'll do the same exact process by peeling it back with our left hand and then scooping with our right hand. Doing the same at the spoke, we can take our thumbs and peel up. After hooking into the next spoke, we can take our tire lever and then slide it along the tire bead all the way around the tire until the tire bead has come off the rim wall completely. Across from the valve, we want to start removing the tube from inside the tire. After we've removed most of the tube from the tire, we want to peel back the tire bead and then grab the tube behind the valve and slide it out of the rim. Now that we have the tube completely out of the wheel, we want to check for what caused our flat tire. We want to be looking for a white powdery substance that comes out of the inside of the tube when it has a hole in it. This gives us a good sign. Here, this one has like a large slit in it, most likely from low pressure, but it's very obvious that that is where our puncture came from. Next up, we want to check the tire to find the root of what caused our puncture. For example, this tire clearly has 2 pieces of glass in it. If we wiggle the tire, the glass should come out. After the glass has already come out, we then want to inspect the inside to make sure there's no more glass left, or whether it be a thorn or anything else that caused the puncture. We would like to remove it from the tire so that when you put your new tube in, it does not cause a second puncture. Now we're ready to install our new tube. First, go in your seat bag and then grab your tube and then open it up. Unwind the tube and then remove the valve cap and the valve retainer. Set these aside to use when you're finally done. Now we're ready to reinstall our brand new tube and get us riding again. First, we want to pull back the tire bead and then insert the valve into the valve hole in the rim. Then we will pick up the tire bead with our thumb and pull it up over the tube. Next, we want to work our tube into the tire, under the tire bead. We want to carefully go around and slip the tube under the tire. We want it to sit nice and down in the rim wall so that when it's inflated, it's nice and even. Next up, now that our tube is in the tire, we can start by using our thumbs at the valve and seating the tire bead down into the rim wall. If it's not seating, you can push the valve up and then push the tire bead down in. Now that we have our tire bead started, we want to work it all the way around the rim, over the rim wall. With one hand, we can use our thumb to seat the tire bead in. With our other hand, we can use the meat of our palm to flip it over. While we're doing this, we want to be mindful of pinching the tube, such as right here. We want to take our right thumb and push the tube up under, so the tire bead doesn't pinch the tube in between the tire and the rim wall. We'll continue to do this all the way around until we get back to where we started. At this point, the tire bead is tight and didn't go over with our hands. This time we will want to use a tire lever, but we'll use it in reverse. Instead of scooping, we want to just flip the tire lever up to get the bead to go over. If we dig in, we risk pinching the tube. After inspecting the tire bead and making sure it's on both sides all the way into the rim, we want to now thread the valve retainer onto the valve up until it comes to the rim. We don't want to be twisting this down very tight because we will then create a fighting match between the valve and the rim when it's inflated. Next up, we will open up the valve just until it stops. Now we're ready to inflate our new tube. We'll take our CO2 inflator and insert it onto the valve, squeezing to make sure that it's all the way up. Then we'll take our CO2 cartridge and thread it into the CO2 inflator head. Once the cartridge is punctured, all the CO2 will rush into the tube and fill it up to a proper pressure to keep you riding, get you home. So we will hold onto the inflator head and then twist the cartridge until it punctures and then inflates the tube. Now we want to thread up our valve retainer until it meets the rim, and then give it a slight snug. To close the valve, we're going to close the brass piece until it closes up. This prevents any air from coming out while riding and hitting bumps. To prevent dirt and dust from getting in the valve, we want to install our valve cap. Now our tire is fully inflated and ready to ride. Now that we're ready to reinstall the wheel, while holding it yourself or having a buddy hold the rear of the bike up, we want to now lead the wheel into the bike frame. Remember that we shifted the bike into the highest gear? We now want to lay the chain on top of that highest gear or the smallest cog, and then pulling the wheel all the way up into the dropout. While holding the wheel all the way up into the dropout, we want to now close our quick release lever. To properly close it, we want to start feeling tension at 90 degrees from close. So we will now force the quick release close while holding the wheel all the way up to properly secure our wheel onto the rear. Now that we have reinstalled the wheel, we want to close our brakes back up to have the same performance that we had before we had our flat. Now that we reinstalled the wheel and have our brake closed, we want to pedal the bike and make sure that it doesn't make any abnormal noises and it still stays in that highest gear that we left it in before we pulled the wheel out. Now that we've changed our flat, we're ready to ride. Thank you guys for watching. This is Logan at My Bike Shop. I'll see you next time.